Welcome to the Urban Herald. Today, we invite you to join our analytical team as we undertake a really comprehensive deep dive.
We're looking into the biographical sources around a figure who, he achieved mythic status in his own lifetime.
But he remains just shrouded in this profound complexity. We're talking, of course, about Michael Jackson.
And this is more than just looking back at history. What we're doing here is providing you, our informed listener, with an essential shortcut.
A shortcut to what, exactly?
To understanding the full picture, not just the scope of his artistic genius, which, let's be clear, is undeniable, but also the challenging, the highly scrutinized and often tragic parts of his personal story.
And the timing for this exploration is so critical. We're not discussing a legacy that's fading away.
Not at all.
We are observing one that's experiencing this active, really powerful resurgence right now.
Just look at the metrics. The sources we've compiled show that his 1982 masterpiece, Thriller, recently became the first song in history to chart in the top 10 across 6 different decades.
6 decades. Just let that sink in for a second.
Think about that time frame. From the late 1970s, when he was still kind of tied to the Jackson 5 structure, all the way to the 2020s.
It's a staggering testament to his cultural resonance.
It really is. It demonstrates that his work speaks to new generations without losing any of its power.
And on top of that, the whole narrative is about to be refreshed in the popular imagination.
You're talking about the biopic.
Exactly. The one slated for April 2026, starring his nephew, Jaafar Jackson. The initial trailer for that film, according to our sources, pulled in an astounding 116 million views.
Wow.
That makes it the single most watched preview for any biographical film ever. Global curiosity is. It's at an absolute peak.
So our mission today is to comprehensively structure this monumental life. We're going to explore the genesis of the Jackson 5 phenomena.
The revolutionary dance and visual culture he pioneered.
The commercial zenith he reached, the shadow of controversies that defined his later years, and ultimately the enduring blueprint he left behind.
The blueprint for the modern global superstar.
Exactly. Okay, so let's unpack this. And we have to begin with the stark realities of where he started.
We begin in the industrial heartland of America. Gary, Indiana. Michael Joseph Jackson was born on August 29, 1958.
He was the 8th of 9 children, born into a working-class home.
And this background, it's shaped by the rhythm of steel mills, the economic struggles of post-war industrial life. It really provides this stark contrast to the global fame that was waiting for him.
It does. And the sources we've analyzed consistently highlight this intensely contradictory environment in that house on Jackson Street.
Contradictory in what way?
On one side, you had his father, Joe Jackson, former musician, a crane operator, and he was the absolute driving force behind the family's rise.
And Joe was focused on one thing.
One thing, achieving perfection.
Yeah, that word perfection here is so crucial because Joe Jackson ran the house not as a family home, but more like a rigorous disciplined training camp.
Yes. The sources describe his methods as severe. We're talking countless hours of high-stakes rehearsal and, controversially, reported physical and emotional discipline to make sure his children met his impossible standards.
So that severity, it just compressed Michael's childhood.
It completely did. Hours that other kids spent at play were, for him, spent rehearsing these complex harmonies, intricate dance routines.
And performing on the chitlin circuit, which I understand was incredibly demanding.
Oh, it was a grueling apprenticeship. It exposed a very young Michael prematurely to a lot of adult realities.
And yet, here's the paradox that we keep finding in the sources. Even under that enormous pressure, Michael found joy.
Right. It wasn't purely coercion.
Yeah.
He genuinely discovered a love for performing. He had this natural flair for connecting with an audience, a way to channel his energy through music and movement.
So he was born for the stage.
Absolutely. Even if the road to the stage was paved with incredible difficulty.
And that internal strength, that joy, was really nurtured by his mother, Katherine Jackson.
She was the counterweight to Joe's discipline. She provided the gentle nurturing, a spiritual foundation rooted in the Jehovah's Witness faith, and this deep moral framework.
She was the one who saw the raw talent first.
She was. And she encouraged him with kindness, which, it mitigated to a degree the emotional harshness of Joe's training.
So you have this incredibly complex foundation. On one hand, extreme, almost military-style discipline driving his professional excellence. And on the other, this deep spiritual and emotional grounding from his mother.
And that foundation, however troubling its origins might be, is what launched them directly into the Motown machine.
The Jackson 5 started formally in 1964 with the older brothers. Michael joined full-time around 65, right?
Yeah, he was initially playing congas, but by the time he was 9, when he took over lead vocals, his indefinable star quality was just immediately apparent to everyone.
The sources describe him as magnetic.
Completely magnetic,
Yeah.
possessing a voice and a stage presence that you just couldn't ignore.
Okay, so here we have to clarify a piece of Motown mythology, the Diana Ross discovery story.
Right. While she became this crucial maternal figure and a lifelong friend to Michael, the actual discovery was, well, a bit more gritty.
How so?
The group's reputation was growing all across the Midwest. They were spotted in 1968 by Bobby Taylor of Bobby Taylor and the Vancouvers.
At the Regal Theater in Chicago.
Exactly. And Taylor was, by all accounts, utterly blown away. He's the one who brought them to the attention of Berry Gordy.
And Gordy was initially resistant. He wasn't a fan of kid acts.
He was not. But that all changed after we watched them audition on July 23, 1968. He committed immediately to shaping them into global superstars.
And then the publicity machine just crafted the Diana Ross story.
Yeah, Gordy felt it added a necessary emotional weight and, a bit of glamour to the signing.
The outcome of that signing was nothing short of miraculous for a young group.
I mean, they achieved a feat that remains unparalleled in music history. They became the only group ever to have their first 4 singles shoot straight to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100.
A flawless trajectory.
Utterly flawless. It started with I Want You Back in 1969, followed swiftly by ABC, The Love You Save, and I'll Be There, all just dominating the charts in 1970.
And that music was meticulously crafted by Motown's in-house writing collective, The Corporation.
Who knew exactly how to highlight Michael's vocal clarity and his innate sense of rhythm?
But let's get to the so what here. Why did this success matter beyond just selling records?
Because the Jackson 5 were a crucial cultural breakthrough. Motown leveraged their unprecedented crossover appeal.
A young, adorable African-American family act.
Exactly. And they used that to break racial barriers on a scale that was previously unseen. They became a pop culture phenomenon that transcended racial lines in what was, at the time, a deeply divided America.
So they weren't just charting on the radio.
Oh no, they were integrated to the mainstream pop consciousness. TV appearances, merchandising, magazine covers.
And Michael's charisma just fueled a massive merchandising empire. Lunchboxes, dolls, posters.
It really created an early model for intense fan devotion and celebrity branding. It completely set the stage for what would become his solo career.
And yet it's that massive, controlled success at Motown that contained the seeds of dissatisfaction that would, define the next chapter of his life.
And that dissatisfaction was really driven by this deep, deep desire for artistic autonomy. By the mid-1970s, the Jackson brothers, and particularly Michael, were growing more and more frustrated with what they called Motown's assembly line model.
Can you elaborate on what that assembly line meant in practice? I mean, for a group that successful, why would they risk leaving the most successful label in Black music history?
Because it meant they were told what to sing. They were told who would write the songs and who would produce them. Motown prioritized reliable, kind of formulaic hits crafted by proven professionals.
So there was no room for them to grow as artists.
Virtually none. No room for the brothers to write or produce their own material. And Michael, who was already, scribbling ideas in notebooks and experimenting with music composition, felt completely stifled. He was bursting with creative ideas that Motown just wasn't interested in supporting.
And the sources are clear. This wasn't just about the art. It was severely financial.
Oh, absolutely. Despite being Motown's biggest commercial asset, the Jacksons found out they were receiving a minuscule 2.8% of royalties from their recordings.
2.8%.
Yeah. Given the massive scale of their sales, that disparity felt utterly exploitative.
So you have creative restriction combined with financial disparity.
The split was inevitable.
So in 1976, they make the pivotal move to Epic Records.
And this is the moment where the power really shifts. They gain meaningful creative input. They can finally choose their collaborators, shape their own artistic direction.
They did have to change their name, though, to the Jacksons.
That's right. Motown retained the rights to Jackson 5.
And the transition itself was pretty challenging, wasn't it? Jermaine stayed behind at Motown.
He did. He was married to Berry Gordy's daughter, Hazel, so he stayed, and the youngest brother, Randy, replaced him.
And those initial albums for Epic, the Jacksons, and Goin' Places, they feel experimental.
They are. You can hear the group learning how to write and produce under their own steam, It's a work in progress.
But crucially, within those transitional albums, Michael's individual talent really starts to diverge from the group.
It really does. He's developing tracks like Enjoy Yourself and Shake Your Body Down to the Ground that hint at this unique, evolving solo sound
A sort of kinetic energy and a songwriting sophistication.
that was beginning to pull away from the collective band vision. The sources suggest this was a time of immense pressure on the brothers, realizing their little brother was rapidly becoming this singular, unstoppable force.
And the real game changer, the definitive moment that just accelerated this solo trajectory, came in 1978 with the filming of The Wiz.
Right. He was cast as the Scarecrow alongside Diana Ross. And that role, even though it was part of a commercially unsuccessful film, proved to be personally transformative for him.
Because that's where he met Quincy Jones.
Exactly. It was during the production of The Wiz that he was introduced to Quincy Jones, who was the film's music supervisor, and Jones was already a legendary figure.
A composer, an arranger, a producer. He'd worked with everyone from Frank Sinatra to Count Basie.
A true titan of the industry.
I find this meeting particularly fascinating. Michael was actively looking for a producer for his first adult solo album. He didn't want to just be a child star grown up.
No, he wanted to push boundaries. He wanted to create music that would truly endure.
So what was it about Jones that attracted him? And why did a legend like Quincy Jones agree to produce a former child star?
Jones recognized Michael's profound ambition and his perfectionism. Michael approached him because he saw in Jones a technical master who could structure his explosive creativity.
So Jones brought the experience.
Decades of it, and a vast network of world-class session musicians, and a philosophy that demanded excellence in every single note. It was a perfect match of, well, genius and discipline.
Their partnership seems like it was almost immediate magic.
It was. Jones provided the technical expertise. He taught Michael about arrangement, orchestration, how to use the studio as an instrument.
And Michael provided the boundless energy, the innovative ideas.
And the willingness to obsessively refine every single track.
This foundational collaboration was absolutely essential for what came next.
It was, because it created this environment of mutual trust that allowed Michael to experiment fearlessly, to finally move beyond the Motown sound and define his own genre-blending adult identity.
And that new identity just exploded onto the scene in 1979 with Off the Wall.
This wasn't just another record. This was a sophisticated declaration of maturity.
Working with Jones, Michael crafted this masterpiece blending disco, funk, R&B, and pop.
And he used the best session musicians in the world. People like Steve Lukather and David Paich, members of the band Toto.
The album was just so musically complex, and it was anchored by Michael's growth as this conceptual artist and songwriter.
He penned 3 tracks himself, including his first solo #1 hit, Don't Stop Till You Get Enough.
A track that introduced this new, more sensual falsetto and established his command over these infectious, complex grooves.
Off the Wall was a massive, critical, and commercial success. It sold over 20 million copies worldwide, spawned 4 top 10 singles.
And earned Michael his first solo Grammy. For any other artist, that's a career-defining moment.
For anyone else, yes. Yet the source material really emphasizes Michael's profound dissatisfaction.
Why? Why was he so unhappy with that level of success?
He was intensely disappointed that Off the Wall did not win the Album of the Year Grammy at the 1980 awards.
So that disappointment was pivotal.
Absolutely. He felt his work was being dismissed as just, pop or R&B, not being acknowledged as the artistic crossover masterpiece he knew it was. He explicitly told Quincy Jones, "I want the next album to be the biggest selling album in music history."
And that disappointment fueled this obsessive drive that completely redefined the music industry.
That next project was, of course, Thriller, released in November 1982. And it wasn't just an album. It was a paradigm shift.
The ambition was explicit. The intensity he poured into it bordered on obsession.
It did. It resulted in a staggering production budget of $750,000, which was unheard of for the time, as he worked for over 8 months to achieve sonic perfection.
The results are, you called it a cultural tsunami. That's the only way to describe it.
It is. Thriller has sold an estimated 70 million copies globally. It broke commercial records by spawning 7 singles, with 6 of them reaching the top 10.
A level of consistency no one had ever achieved.
No one. And then he collected an astounding 8 Grammy Awards in 1984, including Album of the Year.
I think we really need to talk about the genius of the genre bridging here, because that's the real so what of Thriller. It broke down the barriers between musical constituencies, which was essential for its mass appeal.
Absolutely. Take a track like Billie Jean. It's steeped in paranoia and fame anxiety. Really dark themes, but it's underpinned by that iconic, driving, hypnotic bass line and sophisticated rhythm.
It's complex and danceable at the same time.
Right. Now contrast that with Beat It.
Beat It was just revolutionary. A hard, aggressive rock track that fully incorporated Eddie Van Halen's legendary blistering guitar solo.
And by bringing in a recognized rock titan like Van Halen, Michael deliberately and very successfully forced the integration of pop and rock audiences.
A move that fundamentally challenged the segregated music industry landscape of the time.
And you had the perfect pop ballad in Human Nature, the funk workout and Wanna Be Startin' Something, the horror pop title track. Thriller ensured there was something undeniably brilliant for every single radio format, every demographic, every continent.
It was meticulously designed for total domination.
It really was.
But the moment that solidified this cultural dominance wasn't the album release itself. It was a single, perfectly executed movement during a live television performance.
March 25, 1983, the Motown 25 television special.
Michael debuts the Moonwalk while performing Billie Jean.
And he's in that now iconic outfit. The black sequin jacket, the single white glove, the cropped trousers, the white socks.
It was broadcast to an estimated audience of 47 million viewers in the U.S. alone. The visual impact was, well, instantaneous and overwhelming.
And the sources confirmed that that single moment caused Thriller sales to skyrocket even further, cementing the album as a global cultural artifact.
This success shattered racial barriers on MTV. It forced the network to integrate black artists into heavy rotation.
It generated what observers quickly labeled Michael Mania, and it led to these historic moments, like a White House meeting with President Ronald Reagan in 1984.
And Thriller's dominance wasn't fleeting. It stayed on the Billboard 200 chart for over 3 years.
And it held the #1 spot for an astonishing 37 non-consecutive weeks. It just fundamentally validated Michael's vision, combining artistic integrity, social relevance, and absolute commercial dominance into one cohesive revolutionary package.
To really understand Jackson's legacy, we have to dissect his greatest visual contribution, his mastery of choreography. He didn't just inherit dance moves. He synthesized all these diverse influences to create a completely new vocabulary of movement.
He was a profound and dedicated student of movement history. I mean, he integrated the electric athleticism of Jackie Wilson,
And the explosive energy of James Brown.
whom he admired so deeply. He took Brown's camel walk, and then he blended that with the precise, emotive storytelling of French mime artists like Marcel Marceau. He treated dance as seriously as he treated musical composition.
And this leads us directly to the Moonwalk. The sources are very precise on this point. Michael did not invent the move.
No, he didn't. And he was always clear about acknowledging his debt to figures like the tap dancer Bill Bailey in the 1950s and the street dancers who showed him their tricks in the early 80s.
But the sources agree that he did something far more important than invent it.
He perfected it, he popularized it, and he consecrated it as a cultural icon. He learned it in 1981 from a dancer named Casper Casper, but through relentless practice, he added his own style, his own precision, and the cultural context that made it instantly globally synonymous with him after that Motown 25 appearance.
Beyond the Moonwalk, his signature moves demanded this extraordinary technical mastery. Take the toe stand, for instance.
Where he shifts his entire body weight onto the very tips of his toes, creating this illusion of impossible balance.
Often right after one of his dramatic, dizzying spins.
And those dizzying spins were another signature. They were so tightly controlled, often ending in a sudden, sharp, instantaneous freeze, which maximized the theatrical presence.
And then you have the robot movement and his isolations.
Movements where individual body parts move independently from the rest of his torso, creating a look of almost superhuman bodily control, like a machine being manipulated.
And who could forget the technical masterpiece of the anti-gravity lean performed during Smooth Criminal? This impossible 45-degree forward lean where his body just seemed to defy physics.
And this is where we get into the intersection of art and engineering. While it looked like pure physics defiance, our sources note that Michael actually held a U.S. patent for this.
A patent?
Yes, patent number 5,255,452 for the specialized shoes he designed with 2 collaborators. These shoes featured a hitching mechanism, a triangular slot in the heel that locked onto a small peg on the stage floor, allowing him to lean further forward than is humanly possible without wires.
That's incredible. It speaks to his meticulous nature that he patented his own special effects.
Every single detail, every gesture was calculated for maximum impact, even down to his use of the fedora, tossed dramatically or used to obscure his face, adding a layer of mystery and pure showmanship that drew on classical theater and mime.
And this mastery of movement was intrinsically tied to his second major revolution, elevating the music video into cinematic art.
He fundamentally changed how the music industry viewed the video. They stopped being just rudimentary promotional clips and became multi-million-dollar, narrative-driven artistic statements.
The pinnacle of this, of course, was the Thriller short film. Directed by John Landis, its 14-minute runtime and cinematic ambition were just revolutionary.
But the cost was equally staggering. $500,000, which is over $1.5 million in today's currency.
And that cost was so high that Epic Records initially refused to fund it.
He had to secure outside financing, including selling the behind-the-scenes footage to MTV. The risk, of course, paid off spectacularly.
The Thriller video aired on MTV and was viewed by an estimated 65 million people, a monumental audience. The zombie dance sequence became one of the most imitated pieces of choreography in global history.
The commitment to narrative structure, makeup, special effects. It just fundamentally raised the bar for every artist who came after him.
And he continued this commitment with later projects. The Bad video was directed by Martin Scorsese,
featuring theatrical confrontations and complex staging, and the black or white video used groundbreaking morphing technology to address themes of racial unity and inclusion, pushing technical boundaries even further.
He had established that the visual element wasn't just decoration.
No, it was half the artistic statement.
Following Thriller was maybe the greatest commercial challenge in music history. I mean, how do you follow the impossible?
Michael's answer was Bad, released in 1987. And it signaled a very deliberate artistic and visual shift, embracing a harder, more aggressive sonic palette.
Visually, he adopted this streetwise, darker aesthetic, the iconic black leather jacket, the buckles, the chains.
And sonically, the album felt tougher, more angular, focused on tighter, more powerful grooves. He was purposefully countering the media narrative of the soft, ethereal Michael of the Thriller era.
And commercially, the dominance continued. He reached another high watermark that demonstrated his consistent, unparalleled appeal.
I mean, Bad spawned an extraordinary 9 commercial singles, and critically, it produced 5 consecutive #1 singles on the Billboard Hot 100.
An unbroken record.
Unbroken. That includes hits like I Just Can't Stop Loving You, Bad, The Way You Make Me Feel, Man in the Mirror, and Dirty Diana. The album sold over 35 million copies worldwide.
And looking at the tracks, we see that continued versatility. Man in the Mirror, which he didn't write, became one of his most powerful anthems of social responsibility.
It resonated so deeply with fans who were looking for substance beyond just the spectacle.
And tracks like Dirty Diana and Smooth Criminal just pushed the boundaries of sound design.
Dirty Diana, with Steve Stevens on guitar, was this aggressive pop rock track aimed squarely at the pop charts. And Smooth Criminal was a masterpiece of syncopated rhythm and complex arrangement that was just perfectly designed for his visual theatrics.
This commercial zenith was then solidified by the Bad World Tour, which ran for over a year and a half.
The sources confirm it was the highest-grossing tour of its time. It generated $125 million in revenue and played to an astonishing 4.4 million fans across 123 shows in 15 countries.
And here we need to look beyond just the numbers and analyze the logistical genius at play.
The Bad Tour was a blueprint for the modern stadium tour. The scale of the production, the meticulous planning, the sophisticated use of lighting, pyrotechnics, the precision of the set changes.
It demonstrated that Jackson wasn't just an artist. He was a master orchestrator of a global entertainment spectacle.
He had perfected the entire infrastructure of modern touring.
But operating in parallel to this intense commercial drive was a profound and sustained commitment to humanitarian causes, and this began much earlier in his career.
The sources all emphasize that Michael felt a deep moral obligation to leverage his immense platform for social good.
The most famous expression of this was We Are the World in 1985.
Co-written with Lionel Richie, produced by Quincy Jones, this charity single was designed to raise funds for Ethiopian famine relief.
The recording session itself was historic. I mean, can you imagine the atmosphere on January 28, 1985?
This unprecedented assemblage of talent, Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, Stevie Wonder, Ray Charles, all in one room.
And that famous sign placed in the studio, check your egos at the door.
That moment really represented Michael using his celebrity capital to gather the biggest voices in the world for a single, unified purpose.
And the song became a true global phenomenon.
It sold over 20 million copies and raised more than $60 million at the time, which, when you adjust for inflation, is about $160 million today.
And Michael frequently cited this as his greatest personal accomplishment.
He did. He valued the humanitarian impact above any platinum record.
He then formalized this commitment in 1992 by establishing the Heal the World Foundation,
which was dedicated to addressing global poverty, disease, and child exploitation. And his philanthropy was not minor, it was enormous.
He took the extraordinary step of donating all profits from the Dangerous World Tour, which grossed an estimated $100 million directly to the foundation and other charities.
By conservative estimates that our sources have calculated, he donated over $500 million to various causes throughout his lifetime.
And often preferred to do so anonymously.
Yes. This sustained commitment just underscores a genuine conviction he had about using his platform responsibly.
As his commercial star reached its absolute zenith, the media scrutiny of his private life became relentless. It focused so heavily on his changing physical appearance.
This obsession with his facial features, his skin tone, and this air of growing eccentricity became an acutely distressing element of his public narrative.
Jackson did confirm undergoing cosmetic procedures, specifically rhinoplasty and a chin cleft procedure,
some of which he attributed to corrective surgery after a dance injury. However, the cumulative nature of these changes suggested to many observers, including those quoted in our sources, that he suffered from significant body dysmorphia.
a psychological distress about perceived flaws in his appearance.
Exactly.
But the narrative surrounding his increasingly lighter skin color was perhaps the most complex and most misrepresented aspect of his life.
Michael suffered from two major documented health conditions: vitiligo, a depigmentation disorder that causes the skin to lose pigment in patches, and lupus.
And his personal dermatologist, Arnold Klein, confirmed both diagnoses.
The vitiligo caused severe unevenness in his skin tone, and the treatments he received, as detailed in the sources, included depigmentation therapy.
And this was a process used to even out the remaining pigment to match the lighter patches.
Right, it was to make his skin tone uniform, rather than trying to become white, as so many of the racist tabloid narratives inaccurately claimed.
The media often ignored the medical reality in favor of these sensationalist stories about vanity and self-hatred.
And this caused Michael immense psychological suffering. He became increasingly reclusive, often relying on surgical masks, which were initially intended to protect his skin, but quickly became a shield against intense, often cruel, public scrutiny.
Seeking a sanctuary from all this pressure, in 1988, Michael purchased Neverland Ranch for $19.5 million.
This 2,700-acre estate was more than just a home. It was a physical and psychological manifestation of his deep-seated need to recover the childhood he felt had been stolen from him.
He named it after Peter Pan's Island, a place where children never grow up.
And Neverland was designed to create and preserve that sense of lost innocence. It was elaborately fitted with theme park rides, a Ferris wheel, a carousel, bumper cars, an exotic zoo, a private cinema.
The sources state he spent upwards of $35 million on improvements and maintenance over the years, just sustaining this utopian vision.
But his core motivation for Neverland was very specific. He invited children, particularly those who were disadvantaged or suffering from illness, to enjoy the facilities free of charge.
He saw it as a place to share the joy and protection from the harsh adult world that he himself never experienced.
A philosophy of providing an innocent haven that, however, created a dynamic that would eventually lead to the gravest accusations against him.
His personal relationships reflected this complexity. He maintained a lifelong, almost reverent friendship with Diana Ross and a profound connection with Elizabeth Taylor,
who stood by him publicly during his most difficult times. They shared a mutual understanding of the surreal pressures of being, well, perhaps the most famous people in the world.
His high-profile marriages were often complicated. The marriage to Lisa Marie Presley from 94 to 96 was intensely scrutinized and volatile.
And later, his marriage to Debbie Rowe, a dermatology nurse, appeared to be largely an arrangement driven by his intense desire to have children,
which resulted in the births of Prince and Paris. And his third child, Blanket, now known as BG, was born via surrogate in 2002.
His drive to be a father was genuine, rooted in this desire to provide his children with the normal, protected upbringing he never had.
Yet his unusual preference for the company of children, who often accepted him without the judgment of the adult world, created a situation that, in the court of public opinion, became inextricably linked to the severe allegations that followed.
We now turn to the most difficult and contested chapter of his life, the allegations of child sexual abuse, which fundamentally and permanently altered his legacy.
And the Urban Herald's analysis requires us to provide a meticulous, impartial overview of the facts, distinguishing very clearly between the legal and the public outcomes.
The first major crisis erupted in August 1993 with the Jordan Chandler allegations. The 13-year-old boy alleged molestation during visits to Neverland.
Michael vehemently denied the claims. He argued they were motivated entirely by financial extortion.
The defense pointed specifically to the actions of the boy's father, Evan Chandler. In recorded conversations that are detailed in the source material, Evan Chandler made explicit threats to destroy Jackson if his financial demands, which ran into the tens of millions, were not met.
However, investigators were deeply troubled by the specificity of Jordan Chandler's descriptions, which reportedly included private anatomical details about Michael, including the patterns of his vitiligo on his genitals.
That level of detail gave the allegations an apparent credibility that proved very difficult to shake.
Under immense pressure from his legal team, his insurers, and his record label, who all feared the public relations and financial catastrophe of a prolonged civil trial, Jackson chose to settle.
He settled a civil lawsuit for $23 million in January 1994.
It is absolutely crucial to understand the legal distinction here for you, the informed listener. A civil settlement is merely a resolution of a lawsuit. It is not an admission of guilt under civil law.
But the public universally interpreted that large settlement amount as evidence of guilt. It created a devastating narrative that Jackson later expressed profound regret for accepting.
And crucially, following that civil settlement, the criminal investigation continued.
It did. The LAPD and the Santa Barbara District Attorney's Office presented evidence to two separate grand juries, and neither voted to indict Jackson. The investigation was officially closed in 1994 due to insufficient criminal evidence.
But regardless of the criminal outcome, the narrative that Michael Jackson was a potential predator was cemented in the popular consciousness. And it resurfaced a decade later, leading to the high-profile criminal trial of 2005.
That new crisis was fueled by the 2003 documentary, Living with Michael Jackson, which aired footage of Jackson holding hands and sleeping with a young cancer survivor named Gavin Arvizo.
Despite Michael's claims that this was all innocent, the film prompted the Santa Barbara District Attorney's Office, led by the persistent Tom Sneddon, to launch a new, very aggressive investigation.
In December 2003, Jackson was formally charged with 7 counts of child molestation and 2 counts of administering an intoxicating agent, all relating to Gavin Arvizo.
The subsequent criminal trial, which began in January 2005, lasted 5 months and was arguably the most internationally scrutinized celebrity trial in history.
The prosecution relied heavily on the graphic testimony of the Arvizo family, portraying Jackson as a manipulative serial abuser who used Neverland as a lure.
But the defense, led by attorney Thomas Mesereau Jr., executed a highly effective strategy. They focused on challenging the credibility of the Arvizo family.
The defense presented detailed evidence that the mother had a long history of welfare fraud, perjury, and documented attempts to extract money from other celebrities by fabricating claims.
They successfully argued that the entire case was a meticulously planned effort at extortion.
Furthermore, the defense called high-profile celebrity witnesses, including actor Macaulay Culkin,
who testified that he had spent extensive time at Neverland, even sleeping in Jackson's bedroom, and had never witnessed or experienced any inappropriate conduct.
And that testimony was crucial because it provided a direct contradiction to the prosecution's claims about Jackson's pervasive conduct.
The jury deliberated for 7 days before delivering the verdict on June 13, 2005.
Jackson was acquitted on all charges.
Jurors later stated publicly that while they found his behavior, specifically sharing his bedroom with children, to be questionable and inappropriate by normal standards, the prosecution had simply failed to prove criminal sexual abuse beyond a reasonable doubt.
The financial and emotional aftermath was catastrophic. He watched his reputation get permanently damaged, his private life brutally exposed, and his finances depleted. Legal fees were estimated at over $15 million.
He never fully recovered. He retreated from the U.S. and rarely performed after the acquittal.
And even in death, the controversy persists. In 2013, Wade Robson and James Safechuck, both of whom had spent time at Neverland and had previously denied any abuse under oath, filed civil lawsuits.
Alleging abuse beginning in childhood. They claim they had only recognized the trauma years later after extensive therapy.
And these later allegations formed the basis of the 2019 documentary Leaving Neverland, which presented graphic and detailed accounts.
The documentary, however, was widely criticized for being journalistically one-sided, given Michael's inability to defend himself and the plaintiff's documented prior sworn denials.
Our synthesis at the Urban Herald is clear. The truth regarding these allegations remains intensely contested and ultimately unresolvable.
What is undeniable, however, is that these allegations and the resulting public judgment fundamentally altered his global standing and cast a shadow over his entire body of work that has to be acknowledged.
Despite the crushing legal and financial pressures, Michael was facing an estimated $400 million in debt. He maintained one final, colossal artistic ambition.
The This Is It residency.
In March 2009, he announced plans for 50 shows at London's O2 Arena, billed as his curtain call and final major performance series.
The motivation was twofold, right? A creative opportunity to return to the stage.
And the desperate financial necessity of covering his immense debts.
And the response proved his commercial appeal remained completely undiminished.
Tickets sold out almost immediately. The demand was so extreme it exceeded the ticketing capacity of London itself.
And the rehearsal footage, later compiled into the documentary This Is It, it showed his retained artistic vision and performance ability.
It did, despite his visibly thin and frail appearance.
Tragically, the residency never began. On June 25, 2009, Michael Jackson died at age 50.
From acute propofol and benzodiazepine intoxication, the death was ruled a homicide.
The cause was directly linked to the actions of Dr. Conrad Murray, the cardiologist Michael had hired as his personal physician for $150,000 a month.
Murray was administering propofol, a powerful surgical anesthetic, nightly in Jackson's home to help him sleep, a practice that is universally condemned by medical professionals.
Murray was subsequently convicted of involuntary manslaughter in 2011.
The global reaction to his death was immense and immediate. His memorial service was broadcast worldwide to an estimated 2.5 billion people, confirming his status as this unique global figure who truly transcended all cultural boundaries.
In the years since, the focus has broadened, allowing us to really synthesize his undisputed revolutionary cultural impact.
He is justly remembered as the king of pop because no artist before or since has matched his combination of commercial success, sustained influence, and genre-defying innovation.
Let's detail those revolutionary contributions. First and foremost, music videos.
He transformed the medium. He elevated them from simple promotional tools to serious cinematic art forms demanding narrative, massive budgets, and critical attention. Thriller established the gold standard that's still relevant today.
Second,
he didn't just perform. He created an entirely new vocabulary of movement. The moonwalk, the anti-gravity lean, the spins, the isolations. This vocabulary influenced every major pop and R&B artist that followed.
Usher, Bruno Mars, Beyoncé, The Weeknd.
He literally changed how performers move on stage.
Third, fashion.
His iconic looks, the single-sequin glove, the military jackets, the cropped trousers with white socks and black loafers, reshaped the relationship between performance and style.
They became instantly recognizable cultural shorthands that dictated global trends.
And finally, his contribution to the definition of the modern global superstar.
He demonstrated unequivocally that an African-American artist could achieve unprecedented crossover success and cultural dominance on a truly global scale.
He broke long-standing racial barriers and raised the expectations for spectacle, substance, and multimedia integration in entertainment forever.
And his current relevance is astonishing, which ties back to where we started this conversation. That 6-decade Thriller chart history is unparalleled.
Our sources confirm he remains the second most searched male musician globally on Google, with interests spanning across the USA, Brazil, France, India, and Russia. His catalog remains a staple of global streaming, continually introducing his work to generations born long after his prime.
As we conclude this definitive deep dive into Michael Jackson's life, we return to the impartial synthesis that's required by the Urban Herald.
His legacy is defined by an uncomfortable, enduring tension, a constant negotiation between opposing forces.
On one side, you have the unparalleled artistic genius, the unmatched commercial success, 400 million records sold, the blueprint for the global superstar, and his profound, sustained humanitarian contributions.
And on the other, we have to acknowledge the deeply troubling, serious, and ultimately unresolved allegations, the subsequent trauma that marked his later life.
Allegations that just cannot be simply dismissed when assessing his cultural memory.
The challenge for you, the informed learner, is precisely this necessity, holding both of these truths simultaneously. We have to avoid this simplistic urge to either completely canonize his art and ignore the shadows,
Or to completely dismiss his artistic transformation because of the controversies.
Michael Jackson was a figure of spectacular, sometimes tragic, contradictions. He was capable of extraordinary artistic vision and genuine global compassion, but also of behavior that was universally deemed questionable and, in some courts, criminally investigated.
So the final provocative thought, based on the source material's conclusion, is this. Given all the contradictions, given the legal and ethical murkiness, what does Michael Jackson's enduring and undiminished relevance tell us about the complex nature of artistic genius and cultural memory in the modern world?
It really forces us to ask whether we can ever truly separate the art from the artist, or if the sheer scale of his global transformation demands that his complexity just has to be accepted as part of the package.
Thank you for joining the Urban Herald for this deep dive.